This is a story of how the martial arts film genre was born in a bloody rebellion and transformed itself into a spiritual and creative revolution.
A martial artist has to take responsibility for himself and to accept the consequences of his own doing.
What is the highest technique you hope to achieve?
To have no technique.
What are your thoughts when facing an opponent?
There is no opponent.
And why is that?
Because the word I does not exist. A good fight should be like a small play, but played seriously. When the opponent expands, I contract. When it contracts, I expand. And when there is an opportunity, I do not hit. It hits all by itself.
Martial arts films have a Chinese expression, wu xia. Wu means martial arts, which signifies action. Xia conveys chivalry. Wu xia expresses the great dichotomy that martial arts is, deeply spiritual, yet potentially deadly. In the best of martial arts films, the themes are profoundly noble and yet filled with breathtaking action. It is this combination infused with romance and humor that has made this genre one of the most popular in the world. It is enjoying both box office and critical success. Ang Lee's Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon was nominated for 10 Oscars, including Best Picture, and won 4. Jackie Chan's Rush Hour 2 was America's #1 live-action comedy film of 2001. Help! And the Wachowski brothers, The Matrix, pushed special effects and choreography to a whole new level. You are about to discover who its original pioneers were and who is driving this phenomenal film revolution today.
Everybody's got the idea wrong. They think it's all about kicking and punching, and they don't understand the way of life thing about it, and the idea that what it's really supposed to do is improve the texture of your life and the people around you.
How and where did the original Chinese filmmakers discover the possibilities of martial arts? From that came this. Yes, martial arts films derived from opera, but not just any opera. A unique style known as Peking opera that has been part of the Chinese culture for centuries. And how did martial arts become a part of opera? Well, it occurred in the mid-1760s.
When the Manchu dynasty was taking over, they basically made Shaolin, the monastery, illegal. So they set about destroying the Shaolin temple. And 5 men, students, disciples, out of hundreds, were able to escape. And they see that their whole livelihood, their brothers, everyone is dying, and they decide to challenge the Manchu masters. And out of the ruins, of the charred ruins, they find their weapons, they find whatever speciality that they want to use to express themselves in this battle, the last-pitch battle. And they train hard. And it's life and death, and it's a battle, and three out of the 5 survive their battle, but they preserve the Shaolin lore. Like a phoenix coming out of its own ashes. They found their strength from the ashes of the monastery. They went back to their roots to have this battle, to fight, to do something grander, bigger than yourself. And I think that's what makes for heroes, whether real life or, cinematic heroes. You always look for something that is worth fighting for, and it's greater, grander a concept than just for yourself.
One of the 3 surviving monks of the burning of the temple was Master Jishan. While the battles were taking place in 1765, he taught his skills to the traveling Peking opera actors. Jishan did this for 2 reasons. First, to continue teaching the Shaolin traditions of martial arts that the Qing Empire was trying to eradicate. And secondly, to spread the seeds of revolt to anyone who might want to rise up against the tyrant of that time. The opera players passed on this knowledge and skill as they performed and toured around the province. Nearly a century later, in 1850, and for the first time in Chinese history, a group of actors joined a rebellion against the Qing dynasty. When it failed, the authorities banned all theater and opera. Actors performed in secret so that their theatrical traditions, enhanced by the dynamic of martial arts, would not be lost. 20 years later, the new government relented. That's the remarkable connection between the Peking Opera and the Shaolin Temple's martial arts and its predominant Buddhist teachings.
You learn martial art not to fight. You learn martial art to discipline yourself. And I found that quality in martial art film fantastic.
When movies began in China in the early 1900s, actors were needed. They were found at the local Peking opera shows. Peking opera had no women. It was male-dominated. Don't make the mistake of thinking this was theater for guys who like to dress in women's clothes. There are many major actors today who grew up in the Peking opera schools, and one thing that has not changed over the years is the training. It is still intense, exhaustive, extreme, and often downright brutal.
When I was 7, I was on the school training in the daytime from 5 o'clock in the morning until at night. Very tough training. Teacher said, come here. I think it's about time you have a Zhajiang man. I was big shocked. Even my father, my parents, never hit me like this.
Your master punished you. I think that at that time, whipping is very popular. Not only when you're learning Peking opera, but even when you're in the apprentice trades, you're open to punishment from your master. I saw with my own eyes that at that time, whipping was quite effective.
Through the centuries, acting has often been frowned upon as a dishonorable career. Men performing as women in Peking opera was an acceptable practice. When movies began, it was considered such an inferior art form that male actors would not lower themselves to perform in them. So women became the stars. The tough martial arts were performed by women dressed as men. Go figure. The first female martial artist star was Fen Zhuhua. She later taught martial arts, mainly to actresses. Tam Shaozhen started her own opera company before having a successful 40-year career in films. But without a doubt, the most accomplished female martial artist in Chinese cinema is Chen Xiang. In the 1930s, she formed a film company where she starred in and produced many martial arts films. Chen Xiang's eldest grandson is one of today's innovators, Sammo Hung.
Martial arts film trend started with the huge success of a film called Burning of Red Lotus Monastery in 1928 in Shanghai.
Strong stories, married with notable action, has been the basis of the best martial arts films. The burning of the Red Lotus Temple established that tradition. The film was so popular, it spawned a series of 27 movies. Sadly, not one of those films exists anymore. Fortunately, we did find several popular martial arts movies from the silent period. None of these early films have ever been seen outside of Asia before. Fantasy and magic are powerful elements in Chinese culture and were very much a part of the florid Peking opera style of storytelling. These enchanting components were utilized in early filmmaking. As visually fantastic as these stories seem, they invariably had deep meaning for their audiences. Many were based on historical events, spiritual concepts, legends, and on popular novels. The techniques might seem a little crude by today's standards, but look closely, and you'll notice how they're still being incorporated into today's films. With the introduction of talking movies in the early 1930s, a law was passed in mainland China that all films were to be shot in Mandarin, China's predominant dialect. This caused many Cantonese-speaking filmmakers to flee from China to Hong Kong, where restrictions were fewer and many more movies were shot. With the outbreak of World War II and the occupation of Hong Kong by Japan, film production stopped. It wasn't until the dust of war and revolution settled that one of the most beloved folk heroes in China literally came to the rescue of the martial arts film industry.
Everyone knows it's Wang Feihong.
Wang Feihong represents a kind of very honest and upright sense of justice. He eliminates the bullies and helps the downtrodden, anytime, anywhere. He helps others and he never gives in to evil forces. He also has a very kind and sympathetic heart. Not only does he use his medical skills to save and heal people, but at the same time, he's also a very patriotic hero.
Wang Feihong was a martial arts master. His hand-to-hand fighting style appeals cinematically to the film's director, Wu Peng. Wu Peng broke with tradition and hired real martial artists instead of Peking opera-trained choreographers. One of them was Master Lau Kar Lung.
I learned Hong Ga or Hong style boxing. My master, who is my father, is Lao Zham. And my father's master was Lim Sai Wing. And who was Lim Sai Wing's master? Everyone knows, it's Wang Feihong. Who is Wang Feihong's master? Luk Ah Choi. Who was Luk Ah Choi's master? Meng Zixin. He was Southern Shaolin. When Wang Feihong started filming, then of course I was useful because I fought the martial art. In the beginning, we had to really fight with real Kung Fu. That's how we shot Wang Feihong.
The actor who originally played Wang Feihong was Quan Tak Hing.
Let's first talk about Quan Tak Hing. He was in opera, Cantonese opera. At the time when they were casting, they liked Quan Tak Hing's body language, his height. It all resembled the real Wang Feihong. And because he was not familiar with Hong-style Kung Fu, my master and their brothers had to teach him. And Quan Tak Hing was extremely intelligent because, after all, he was an opera actor.
The spell Wang Feihong held over Chinese audiences then is still powerful today. His magic has worked wonders for the careers of two of today's top stars, Jackie Chan in a comedy and Jet Li in a drama.
Kwon Tak-hing made approximately 90 Wong Fei-hung movies. He became so identified with the character of Wong Fei-hung that Kwon Tak-hing himself became a living legend. When he retired, he became a healer, opened up a pharmacy, and taught martial arts.
Even though Kwon Tak-hing's Wong Fei-hung films were incredibly popular, women were still the real stars throughout the 1950s.
So my first movie, it's not a woman in the movie. In the movie, I'm a man, a guy. At that time, maybe early stage acting is very low. The man in the family, they'd rather the wife to watch a lady do it.
The female stars of that period were Pei Pei Chang, Josephine Xiao, Suet Ne, and Chan Po Chu. Every one of them regularly portrayed a man in a film. Asian society's attitude toward movies had not changed since the 1920s.
The 1950s and early 1960s had two major film companies. One came to be known as the Cathay Film Company. The other was dun, 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 boom, 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 boom. The Shaw Brothers.
In the 1950s, the Shaw Brothers built a huge, secluded, and totally self-contained studio on Clearwater Bay, Hong Kong. It was a city unto itself where everyone worked, lived, ate, and slept. Everyone. Set painters, directors, actors, prop masters, cameramen, anyone who had anything to do with making a film lived on the studio lot, miles from anywhere. In the early 1950s, Raymond Chow joined Shaw Brothers and is credited, along with owner Run Run Shaw, with improving production and story standards.
Under the watchful eye of Raymond Chow, Shaw Brothers continued with the popular swordplay-influenced stories. However, he and his directors were beginning to take note of Japanese filmmakers, particularly Akira Kurosawa.
I think Shaw Brothers has a deliberate attempt to copy samurai movies because I think back then it's big money makers in Asia. They're very influential. Some of them get into artistic levels such as Kurosawa's.
I think the Japanese at that time, at that period in history, were very, very realistic in their depiction of what happens in terms of a battle, a sword fight.
Akira Kurosawa was a great humanitarian. His themes were powerful and counter to the nationalistic fervor of the time. He was one brave man.
All of the great Kurosawa classics were brilliant personification of not only filmmaking, but the philosophies and the spiritual aspects of the martial arts.
The Shaw Brothers management regularly screened Kurosawa's and other Japanese films for its producers, writers, and directors. The message they got was that powerful drama and realistic action was possible. Three Shaw Brothers directors, King Hu, Shang She, and Lau Kar-leung, were particularly influenced. This trio would change the face of martial arts films, and in very different ways.
King Hu and Zhang Qi are of tremendous influence to the martial arts films of the era, because almost everyone is imitating their work.
He is, I think, it's very, very important people for the Hong Kong martial art movie because he totally changed the style. It's a line there. Before that, martial art movie, just Beijing opera. Then start from the Come Dream With Me. The martial art movie, it's an action movie. So I think that's totally different. Make me very famous, that's right. This, the movie, changed my whole life. Because after that, I do a lot of martial art movies. even Crouching Tiger. I'm still in martial art, right? So it changed my whole life.
Most obviously, of course, King Hu. I think he sets tone for many things. The use of negative space due to Chinese watercolor paintings. I think that's a lot of his background. And also Peking opera influences. I think most of his films, at least the best ones, are about the warm-up paragraphs in a nice program, Peking opera performing. Hero characters, bad characters, they come to one meal, they bing bang bing. Good guys win, something happens. But the rhythm, the performing art, the music aspect of it, the choreography, the poses, the rhythm, bang 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 bang, and all those rhythms, along with some, I guess, Hitchcockian or Eisenstein influences.
In addition to the beauty of the movement, there was also a very, very strong element of suspense. So his films and Zhang Qi's are very different because King Hu emphasized the poetic romance between men and women, whereas Zhang Qi's films placed greater importance on the righteousness and bonds between men.
Director Zhang Qiu was profoundly inspired by Kurosawa's realism and masculine approach.
In Zhang Qi's movies, women don't mean a thing. They're a drag at the best. At their best. Most of the time you don't even see them. So I don't think he cared for women. He enjoyed the beauty of men.
In those days, most of the leading stars were ladies. One-Armed Swordsman was one of the first pictures that emphasized on the male lead.
哦，又是你这个残废啊！哎，小妞呢？
One-Armed Swordsman. I think that is the one that really blew me away. And for me, it means a lot because I had polio when I was like a baby. So I sort of like consider myself a little bit inadequate, not as normal as anybody. And when I watched that movie, it's sort of like almost like give me electric joke, you know, like you can do it. You know, the guy even with one arm can even fight the best martial artists in the world, you know? And that has a lot of great impression, that movie, when I was growing up.
To make use of the fact that other people's perception of his weakness or his inability is his strength. That is a concept that's a true adaptation of the philosophy of martial arts.
The 1967 film, One-Armed Swordsman, was a movie very much of its time. The youth in Hong Kong, just as in the United States and Europe, was finding its voice, rebelling against the status quo, and Zhang Qiu realized that. For him, that was what this film was about.
Master, I no longer believe in your ways. I have my own path to go.
He was saying, don't let your youth be a weakness. Understand and train it to become your strength. He acknowledged that this was his version of the American classic, Rebel Without a Cause. One-Armed Swordsman was just one of nearly 100 movies Zhang Qiu directed, many of which became classics. And it wasn't just his marriage of bloody realism and intellectual insights that made him revered, but also his stylized way of shooting and editing. He was influenced by Arthur Penn's 1967 seminal gangster movie, Bonnie and Clyde, and its use of slow motion.
I imitate a lot of things of Zhang Qi. When I had the chance in 1973 to shoot my first film, Young Dragons, there are many shadows of Zhang Qi in it. And the kind of spirit of the male lead character in my film, his sense of justice, of passion, and righteousness are very close to Zhang Qi's. Zhang Qi's films very much emphasize the so-called righteous and just spirit, and it made me idolize him very much.
The third important director from the Shaw Brothers studio is Lau Kar-leung. He's a true martial arts master whose training lineage can be traced all the way back to monk Jishan. Monk Jishin was the master who, after the second Shaolin temple was burned down, taught martial arts to the Peking opera actors in the first place. It has been Lau Kar-leung's life's work to bring real martial arts to the big screen. With Lau Kar-leung, we have come full circle to the two primary traditions of martial arts films, Peking opera and the Shaolin Temple.
At that time, no one had yet shot a film about monks. No one would shoot a film about monks. Usually, they would shoot martial arts hero films with handsome guys and great heroes. Why would anyone be so bold as to use a new actor, Gordon Liu, to play a bald monk? No matter how well you fight, it's useless. Monk films have no romantic interest. Martial arts hero films have romantic elements. So at the time, the producer and the director, Lau Kar-leung, argued over this concept. How can a film be without a love story? But monks can't have a love story. So what do we finally shoot? The story of the spirit, the kung fu moves, and the perseverance of the monks. We finally finished the film, The 36 Chambers of Shaolin.
Now, 36 Chambers of Shaolin, I wanted to show this thing called Kung Fu. What is Kung Fu? Kung Fu does not rely on fighting. Many things have to do with awareness. Your eyes, your ears to listen, and all kinds of weapons. And everyone must train in all these chambers. Chamber of blades, chamber of kicks, chamber of eyes, chamber of ears. They must train in each chamber. So I came up with the idea, the human body, each part that moves has feeling of motion. Every part that moves has feeling of motion. Feeling of motion. It has its own kind of charisma. So I decided to show it in the 36th chamber. Human Kung Fu cannot be attained by sitting there and moving one part. The whole body must move.
For other directors, it may be a difficult thing, but I felt that for director Lau Kar-leung, it was not difficult, because he is known as the Dictionary of Kung Fu.
In my understanding, I feel that the so-called real martial arts is not to teach people how to kill others or to beat up people. Real martial arts is a kind of discipline for the heart and passions. It is how to train yourself to become a virtuous, just, and righteous man.
Although martial arts films were increasingly popular in Asia, they had not yet penetrated the world market. In 1970, two main events occurred that would radically change the martial arts film genre. First, producer Raymond Chow left Shaw Brothers and with Leonard Ho formed their own company, Golden Harvest.
I think in the late 60s, television was beginning to become popular in the United States. I think the management of Shaw Brothers felt that the same effect may hit Hong Kong and was thinking of cutting down the operation and using half of the manpower to go into and capital to go into television. I didn't quite agree with that. We left in 1970 and we made, first year I think we made 4 pictures already.
The other main event of 1970 was a guy named
Bruce Lee.
Bruce Lee.
Bruce Lee.
Bruce Lee.
Bruce.
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 Bruce. Bruce Lee.
There's some things I still think up to this day nobody do better than he does. The spirit of fighting, the charismatic, the stardom kind of attraction that comes along not only with his performances but his philosophy in fighting and deal with life. That was very straightforward, very westernized, very gung-ho, like can-do spirit, than a repressed Chinese zigzagging kind of attitude.
Bruce Lee, who would have such an impact on martial arts films, was actually born and raised in San Francisco, California.
Bruce was an actor before he was a martial artist. He did his first commercial when I think he was 5, and he didn't start studying Kung Fu until he was 10. And, you know, his father was an opera singer, and, I mean, that guy, he's a showbiz guy.
The first martial arts film, or television actually, was Bruce Lee's Green Hornet. And one day I was watching this, obviously, Asian guy with a mask on, jumping up and down and doing flying kicks.
Green Hornet was a successful series, but the United States wasn't ready for Bruce Lee to become a leading man.
I admire Bruce Lee. I remember in one interview when he was saying that the Kung Fu TV series, you know, is supposed to written for him, and because he's Asian, you know, Chinese face, and back then American television, they don't believe that, you know, they can, you know, they would like to see an Asian hero.
Bruce Lee left the United States and headed back to his adopted country, Hong Kong.
When Bruce first joined us, the first picture we have him made was done in Bangkok. And after the first day's work, the director called and said that I want to change Bruce Lee because he can't fight. I said, why? He said, everybody in the unit knows that we're now calling him Lee 3 Kicks because he can kick only 3 times. So I flew to Bangkok, looked at the situation and asked Bruce what happened. Bruce said, this director is useless because these 3 guys are just sort of soldiers, very low-down soldiers who can't really fight. If I have to spend 5 minutes dealing with them, what I'm going to do when I meet the real good martial artists? And besides, he said, the way I kick these 3 kicks is so strong, they should be out completely. So I look at the film and I think I agree with him, and we just quietly change the director, and really the rest is history.
I think he has an effect on each of us who are Chinese and work in the movie industry. His ethnic identity is very strong, and it makes everyone excited. He stands out from the crowd and is proud of being a Chinese. His sense of identity, of being a Chinese, is really strong.
白衣你要做咩？入去睇睇。唔得啊！你要做就睇。
I think Bruce, you know, he was much more than just a martial artist, and he was much more than a martial arts actor or superstar. The philosophy that he had, the things that he wrote, the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, the ideas that he had were so far and ahead of his time.
I said, empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
His most special quality is that he had his own character. He allowed his character and acting to be different from others. His confidence is very high, and he combined the Chinese ways and Western styles. His style is not purely Chinese, but he included the westernized ingredients in expressing his loyalty to his country and race. Watching him is not only seeing an actor, but more, and very special.
Styles tends to not only separate men, you know, because they have their own doctrines, and then the doctrine became the gospel truth, you know, that you cannot change, you know. But if you do not have styles, if you just say, well, here I am, you know, as a human being, how can I express myself? Totally and completely. Now, that way, you won't create a style, because style is a crystallization, you know. I mean, that way, it's a process of continuing growth. And when you do punch, now I'm leaning forward a little bit, hoping not to hurt any camera angle. I mean, you gotta put the whole hip into it and snap it and get all your energy in there and make this into a weapon.
I never see anybody do change of rhythm in a fight so well as he does, even up to these days. You know, there's choreographed, boom, 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 boom. It takes certain rhythms, and nobody fight like that. But his fight looks more powerful and real and more spiritual, because every punch he throws, every block he does, every change of rhythm he does, even eye shifting means something. And that's very intriguing. It's great entertainment and very inspiring.
His eyes always look forward. Those movements were so tremendous that on set they make fling-fling sounds. The winds from his fists scare you to death.
And I remember I went to see Enter the Dragon, and I came back and I said to Jerry Thorpe, have you seen this movie? And he said, no. And I said, you haven't? You got to see this movie. And I decided to make it mandatory that everybody on the crew see the movie. He said, we're up against the James Bond of martial arts, you know. And I said, no, Jerry, we're up against the James Dean of martial arts. Big difference.
To me, okay, to me, ultimately, martial art means honestly expressing yourself. Now, it is very difficult to do. I mean, it is easy for me to put on a show and be cocky, and be flooded with a cocky feeling, and then feel like pretty cool and all that. Or I can make all kinds of phony things, you see what I mean? Blinded by it. Or I can show you some really fancy movement. But to express oneself honestly, not lying to oneself, and to express myself honestly, now that, my friend, is very hard to do.
Audiences often wonder why most martial arts films were period pieces set in centuries long ago. Well, Bruce Lee had a simple answer for that.
Nowadays, I mean, you don't go around on the street kicking people or punching people. Because if you do,
yeah,
that's it. I mean, I don't care how good you are, you know.
In spite of this belief, Bruce Lee was one of the first innovators to portray martial arts in a contemporary setting.
In 1973, at the age of 32, Bruce Lee tragically died from a brain edema. He had only completed 4 movies, but they would open up the world to the martial arts genre. Almost as soon as the world got to appreciate him, he passed away.
Over 20,000 fans showed up for his funeral.
People still love Bruce Lee and also stage, and he makes this keep on. His spirit is still there. The movie he's now still keep on showing. We still look at it. So many things to impress us. He's the only kung fu master I think in our show business, in our Chinese show business. Not because of he's a real kung fu martial artist, and he can make the kung fu become a kind of kung fu plus ballet. Plus a kind of soul to something to explain that he's a spirit that can show on pictures.
Bruce Lee's death created a vacuum unprecedented in martial arts films. Suddenly, the future was looking bleak for the genre. Fortunately, in 1973, a television series from the United States helped keep martial arts alive and popular around the world. Ironically, it was the series that Bruce Lee had hoped to star in.
Learn this, grasshopper. The mind of every creature, great or small, is the master of its own body. But only if the mind flows with nature may that mastery be exercised to its fullest. There is no limit to the wondrous powers of the body, nor is there a limit to the ways one may harness those powers to the mastery of the harmonious mind. It may take half a lifetime to master one system.
What do you hear?
I hear the water. I hear the birds.
Do you hear the grasshopper, which is at your feet?
Old man, how is it that you hear these things?
Young man, how is it that you do not?
When I was a kid, I would watch Kung Fu, and try to grab the grasshopper out of the hand and replicate, what was happening in Kung Fu.
No one will die here today. You wish to save this worthless devil? A Shaolin. A coward. A peasant who carries vegetables. An old woman who runs in the night from shadows.
And that was always sort of a fantasy, in that here was a guy who was interested, in righteousness and doing the right thing and sort of representing, the common man and the little man. But when called upon, he could, step up and make it happen and, sort of kick ass and fight in the name of righteousness. And I always found that very sort of magical.
I feel sort of privileged to have managed to fall into, I think I'm maybe the only martial arts star who came to it from the point of view of an actor.
Many roads often lead to the same place.
Many roads lead to places where no one wishes to go. You're up to something, Kane. It is said that a moth that lives too close to the flame leads a short life.
But in China, it is said there is little difference between a long life and a short one. Both are but moments in time.
By and large, the people who make martial arts movies are martial artists who have gone out and devoted their lives to martial arts and then given that up and decided to try to be actors, kind of late in life. And I'm a, born and bred actor. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about crime. It was about philosophy. And it was historical.
Enough!
And I felt like that. When I first started doing it and all the way through that series, I felt like, I'm getting to say these things that you just don't get to say in movies.
After Bruce Lee died, the whole movie industry going down. Everybody think that Bruce Lee is the best, some other action movie. Nobody could see it. And at that time, I was very disappointed.
The martial arts genre desperately needed a breakthrough, and in the late 1970s got the shot in the arm it required from its old friend, Peking opera and comedy.
In the theater, there is a troupe where we all perform. For example, Jackie Chan, Sammo Hung, Yuen Biao, and all of us lived together, and we learned what was called Peking opera. We all became stuntmen. Actually, it was really Sammo. Sammo Hung was the first who got started. Then it was Jackie Chan. Then me, then Yuen Biao. Sammo Hung got out of school 3 years ahead of us. When we learned opera, he was the first to enter the school and was considered to be our eldest martial arts brother. So he had to start looking out for us then. If he did not look out for us, he would not be given food. So he had to look out for us.
Painted Faces is an autobiographical movie of Jackie, Corey, Yuen Biao, and Sammo's young lives growing up in the Peking Opera School.
Audiences who see the movie think it's harsh enough. For us who actually lived through the years of training and struggle, it doesn't show all that went on. For us, it doesn't tell the truth adequately. As I said, since the audience already considered it bad enough, if we added more into it, the actual experiences, the audiences would never be able to accept the truth. It was decided to romanticize the experience and show the audience some of the training we went through. I still think it's a pretty good movie.
Sammo Hung, Corey Yuen, and Yuen Biao each have successful careers, but Jackie Chan would be the one to really be embraced by the world. It wasn't an easy road at first. Producers tried to make Jackie into Bruce Lee. All those films failed.
Jackie is quite different, or I'll say entirely different from Bruce, and I think it's very wise of him to take that route. Jackie relies more on comedy to increase the attraction of his martial arts.
Jackie's first breakthrough movie utilized his strengths, his comedy and imagination.
A snake mouth, I make the reason why you have to, like this. Oh, okay. You just block somebody's arms. Okay, that's a snake mouth. And when you turn around, that's a snake tongue, you know. Then I go home, I look at the mirror, I just like this. Then when everybody sleep, I practice. Yeah, look good for the movie. That's a new style. It's not like it's coming and do some comedy. You know, these kind of things.
Jackie followed Snake in the Eagle's shadow with Drunken Master, and this made him Asia's #1 star.
Each temple one Buddha, each master his own technique.
Jackie has acknowledged his influences have been the early American silent stars Buster Keaton and Harold Lloyd.
Older movies, Chinese movie, every movie. When you see the double, you can tell. Pa, 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 pa. Everybody do like this. When you look at Jackie Chan movie, when I'm doing the stunt, pa, 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 boom, down. That's me. I hate violence. Yes, I do. It's a kind of a dilemma, huh?
Every time I would see him perform, I would go home and copy moves. I would remember what he did on film and go and try them because he was my inspiration.
You know, people recognize that stuff, it's not CG, you know, it's not created in a computer somewhere. And that's just someone who's, you know, worked very diligently and studied for a long, hard time and is able to pull it off in front of the cameras.
Jackie Chan has now been the top martial arts actor for nearly 30 years. In the last few years, he has arguably become the #1 box office star in the world in any genre.
Here's Jackie! Everybody have a dream. I have a dream. I hope one day my name could place on this start row.
Jackie's my hero. About Jackie Chan, he's a great man.
Hey, buddy. Thank you very much. You bet. You got a good sense of humor, which is good.
You see a wonderful actor. It's just
innocence and charm, and suddenly this wonderful physical activity going on. And how many people can do that?
Almost simultaneously to the needed and much-hailed comedy boost, Hong Kong created its own international film festival. This encouraged new talent to become more experimental. A new wave of filmmakers emerged, led by the likes of Tsui Hark, John Woo, Yuen Woo-ping, Jet Li, Corey Yuen, and Jackie Chan.
You have to watching me.
In Asia, writer, director, and producer Tsui Hark is often mentioned in the same class as distinguished directors Steven Spielberg and Alfred Hitchcock. Born in Vietnam, he found his way to Texas to learn American filmmaking. One of his favorite movies is the classic Citizen Kane. In 1977, Tsui returned to Hong Kong and began a prolific career. His early work, Zoo Warriors from the Magic Mountain, was the first major special effects movie made in Hong Kong.
Tsui Hark doesn't like to rap for the day. He's mad. His passion scatters to death. This is a good director, but his crew will find their work to be rather physically straining.
He's very creative. He was never kind of just happy to do the usual thing. He was always figuring out a new way to do things in a more innovative fashion.
In 1984, Tsui formed his own production company, Film Workshop, and experimented with historic dramas, horror, swordplay movies, fantasy, science fiction, comedy, and romance. There's not a style Tsui Hark hasn't attempted, a camera angle he hasn't tried, and a technology he hasn't sampled. He is truly a forerunner of the MTV generation. But his films are not style over substance.
每当想起家父之事，总是惊不成眠。
He invited and encouraged new writers and directors to work with him by stating simple goals. Develop your own style. There must be a point to your story. It must be cathartic and make the audience feel better. Hopefully, we will become one with the audience because they go to the movies to feel, not to understand.
I think Tsui Hark is the kind of modernizer of both the Kung Fu subgenre and the sword play subgenre. Kung Fu, of course, everybody knows is Once Upon a Time in China series.
The star of the Once Upon a Time in China series, Jet Li, was a Chinese martial arts champion. His career has exploded into the international arena. Tsui Hark collaborated with many of the riveting new talent, either as a producer, director, or writer. Amongst them is director and one of the great contemporary choreographers, Yuen Woo-ping.
Every 10 years, I noticed when martial art films, the energy, the genre is beginning to die down, and he did something that will blossom the genre for another 10 years. There will be at least 4 or 5 years people copying him.
So Yuen Woo-ping, obviously, he was one of the pioneers. One of his specialties actually is acrobatic movements. If you notice, the Snake and Eagle Shadows and some of his earliest work and Drunken Master. There was a lot of acrobatic elements in it. Playing with the stool, playing with the chopstick, because he grew up in that environment. He grew up in learning from his father, which was a very influential martial art choreographer. And his father started off as Beijing Opera. So they all learned their physical skill from Beijing Opera. Same as Jackie Chan and Sammo.
He's an artist. He cares for those things, although I think he doesn't want to admit it. I think with his experience and talent and mastery in the art, he still has an open heart like a child. That's why I love him so much. I think he inspired me not only in making martial arts scenes, but as a filmmaker in general.
You know, what if a Baryshnikov or a Nureyev were to do a martial arts film?
From choreographer Yuen Wu-ping to someone who moves his camera like Wu-ping manipulates a body to highlight a moment.
He's the Wu Man.
The Wu Man.
He's the Wu.
Is director John Woo.
He's the man.
So first of all, I really loved The Wizard of Oz. You know, what impressed me the most was Judy Garland and her three friends. Now, one was the Tin Man, one was the Lion. The Tin Man was actually very weak, and so I felt that he was similar to my personality.
Well, you're perfect now.
My neck. My neck. Perfect? Oh, bang on my chest if you think I'm perfect. Go ahead, bang on it. Beautiful. What a nickel. It's empty. The tinsmith forgot to give me a heart. No heart? No heart. All hollow.
You know, I felt that I was him. I related to his character, and so later in the story, he became very strong. So it gave me a lot of encouragement. My favorite was the theme song of the film, Over the Rainbow. Over the Rainbow gives me great emotional support. And for me, it means at the rainbow's end, there is still a very beautiful world. Now, people should not give up their hope. They should forever, endlessly work hard to find hope. And at that time, when I was living in an environment which was so difficult, it gave me great encouragement.
Wizard of Oz to The Killers, Face Off, and Mission Impossible 2? Let's back up for a moment and see the evolution of John Woo, the man who has made martial arts films, comedies, a musical, action, and some of the bloodiest scenes ever shot.
When I was about 5 years old, my whole family moved from China to Hong Kong. And at that time, we were very poor. We lived at a squatter area at Sekip Mei, and we slept on the street. I lived in that poverty till I was 9. I never had the chance to go to elementary school. But later, we received help from the Christian church and an American family. The American family sent money to the church for my education. At that time, I really loved watching movies, and I entered the world of films. Besides opera films, I watch a lot of martial arts films, especially the Wong Fei-hung films. It was because I felt the place where I lived was just like hell, that life was very dark and gray and very hopeless because I was living in a world full of evil and sins. In the cinemas and in the church, they were my only refuge.
John Woo has never forgotten how transcendent the song Somewhere Over the Rainbow was in his violent childhood. He used a contemporary version of the song in his film Face Off.
Don't be scared, all right? All right?
Skies of and the dreams that you dare to dream really do come
true. And so, in my films, my characters sometimes are between good and evil.
Wow. We've got something in common. We both know our guns.
When I shoot gunfight films, I use the same feelings as in a martial arts film. Only I use double guns in place of the sword. For example, the layout of my scenes, character design, and those action designs are all very close to Zheng Qi's martial arts film style. The heroes in my films shoot many times, continuously, and people get hit continuously. Now that feeling has the Zheng Qi's martial arts film's shadow. When I deal with my hero, he stands as he holds the gun, and his views of the gun is the same as the heroes in the martial arts film, but he holds a sword. Now, how he uses his sword and the way he sees his sword, the feeling is exactly the same. So, my personality will forever stand on the side of justice. So I will always believe justice will win.
In the 1980s, in the middle of this creative eruption and after nearly 2 decades out of the spotlight, women found themselves center stage again.
Because a woman's body, the beauty in movement is very beautiful. So when I first shot Michelle Yeoh and Cynthia Rothrock, at that time it started a new trend. Because when that film came out, I saw the fame of Michelle Yeoh and also of Cynthia Rothrock. A lot of women started to be in action films.
I would go somewhere and people would say, you could wear lipstick when you're doing martial arts. It's like, yes, of course you can.
Kung Fu. Kung Fu is something I have to use when I shoot films. Kung Fu is my tool with which I make a living. Kung Fu is what destroyed my health. Okay? And so to me, Kung Fu is a love-hate thing. I can't be without it. And with it, I feel I hurt myself very much. But of course, when you don't use it, you won't be doing your best. So I do love it, yes. But in my personal life, I would not be in contact with it. Very contradictory.
With so many successful contemporary martial arts films in the 1970s and 1980s, it came as a surprise to the outside world to see a resurgence of period films. Hong Kong, however, was not mystified. In the colony, there was great political uncertainty as the British government prepared to hand back the province to mainland China in 1997. Audiences embraced and seemed to want to be reminded of a familiar and rich history, full of heroes that somehow might lead them through this transitional period. With the renewed interest in period stories, it seemed certain that contemporary martial arts films would fall into a cyclical slump. But that hasn't happened. It seems as if martial arts in movies has matured beyond simple training and has become fully accepted as a genre, allowing all kinds of stories to be simultaneously produced, from high action to science fiction to comedy, romance, and period. This is proven with the huge success of films like The Matrix, Rush Hour 2, and Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Finally, Shaolin Temple and Peking opera-influenced styles live side by side. Undoubtedly, the pinnacle of the world's respect for martial arts films is highlighted by the international awards, accolades, and success of Ang Lee's Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. All of the best qualities of the genre have been captured: spiritual, mythical, dramatic, romantic, beautiful photography and choreography, and fantastic action.
I was surprised, of course. I mean, a decade ago, I would have never expect Chinese language martial art epics to be mainstream and won an Oscar.
There's no shortage of heroines in the movie, but I suspect that's man's fantasy or society's fantasy to see heroic women fight is something to watch, to admire. This Chow Yun-fat character is given this young prodigy who happens to be so attractive looking some lessons on bamboo top. What do you think I'm after?
I think Ang Lee is a genius in a way that he's sort of like find a very authentic Chinese period story. Period. I mean, it's not contemporary, right? They all dress funny, right? But then the subject matter of the character inside the story are telling a very contemporary story. You know, the situation, you know, the girl, the young girl. He's just like nowadays teenagers. Very rebellious against tradition, like free spirit, looking for identity, you know, try to break through, you know. And then you have this forbidden love between Chow Yun-fat and Michelle Yeoh. They're sort of like, they love each other because of they're bound by the tradition.
I want to interrupt you. I will say, I'm sort of a hopeless romantic also. And the martial arts in its truest sense is a fairly sort of solitude path. I think there's some dialogue when Chow Yun-fat is dying and he looks up to Michelle Yeoh, and he's had trouble all his life in telling this woman that he loves her, which has sort of been another problem I've had. I'm not very good at that kind of thing either. The martial arts are also the essence of love, you know, and the nurturing, motherly protection of love that love should have.
The filmmaker that directed it and made it, Ang Lee, brought a sensitivity of character development and story, and the way he shot it. Like the most memorable things for me is when Chow Yun-fat, Michelle Yeoh, were having a conversation. She's sitting, he's standing in this kind of cement almost building, and in the backdrop of this, you know, this huge window, it's a beautiful green scenery of mainland China in the backdrop, and you realize that. And, you know, the confinement that they're in because they can't consummate their relationship. Just outside is the beauty of nature. Everything is available to them, but yet they can't go beyond. They're closed in. And I thought, wow, you know, and that's a real filmmaker and storyteller's sensibility.
The first question he asked me is, do you mind being a bad guy? Because I'll never be a bad guy. That's my first time. But of course not the last time though. Because I think maybe in personal I'm very very kind, very sweet. So nobody think I could be a bad guy, but he's the first one. But I said, it's okay, I don't mind. As long as you think I can do it, then I can do it.
你的路已经到了尽头。
是谁想？虽然你死也不愿，徒儿不孝，我要的是玉蛟龙的命。10年苦行，就是因为你一肚子的坏。蛟龙，我唯一的妻，唯一的主。
The ending, of course, when the girl flies down, I just thought I want to make a movie that's just targeted toward that image.
Throughout this story, many of these martial arts pioneers and innovators have acknowledged the influence of American films on their styles, from the tender Wizard of Oz to the bloody Bonnie and Clyde. But elements of martial arts have appeared in American films that were definitely not martial arts stories. Frank Sinatra studied his stuff seriously in the early 1960s in Manchurian Candidate. And Peter Sellers highlighted his training techniques in the Pink Panther film series. And it continues on to current successes like Charlie's Angels and even the animation favorite, Shrek. After Bruce Lee's influence in the 1970s, Hollywood embraced martial arts as a central component in its storylines, and it continues today. In the eyes and hearts of these innovators who have struggled and fought to make martial arts films an international success, what does this achievement mean?
That shows you the world's getting closer. The world's getting more open-minded. America's getting more open-minded. They open enough to accept good things if the thing is good. If the product is good, if the film is good, it doesn't matter what languages, it's what culture.
Well, it means that there is some serious audience out there who want to see martial art film. That's what it means.
I hope to see in the future more Chinese films which will take our real traditional martial arts spirit, that sense of righteousness, to make it shine in a very realistic way.
Just like Bruce Lee. Everyone in the world knows Bruce Lee, but not everyone appreciates martial arts. They appreciated Bruce Lee only. Now people are starting to appreciate martial arts. It is all about the timing.
I cannot predict where it goes, but this is a genre I believe it never dies, at least for the Chinese. It's always go up and down, but somehow when you see it's dying, and somebody figure a way to do it and do something new, exciting, it will get hot again.
Wuxia, that Chinese term I mentioned at the beginning. Wu means martial arts, which signifies action. Xia conveys chivalry. Wuxia. Say it gently. Wuxia. And it's like a breath of serenity embracing you. Say it with force. Wuxia! And you can feel its power. Such is the dichotomy of martial arts films, a genre that was born in a bloody rebellion and continues on today with its own spiritual and creative revolution.
A lot of martial arts' first principle is how to discipline our heart and passions and to train our own virtue.
To me, it's a dance. Because I'm a dancer.
I think martial art is not, like I keep saying this, martial art is not just not two guys fighting each other. You know, martial art is, martial art itself, I think it's more spiritual than anything else.
Real martial arts is a kind of discipline for the heart and passions. It is how to train yourself to become a virtuous, just, and righteous man.
To me, martial art is about interpreting yourself the most devoted, the most honest way. It's an expression. To me, martial art is an expression.
I was determined to be loyal. The most important thing is to be loyal. Failure is unimportant. Even if you fail, perhaps you should think about whether you worked hard. Be loyal. Stay loyal. Even if in the future they don't like to watch my kung fu films, I would just be another actor then. I am faithful, faithful, faithful to this art.
That is a very deep question. They just go and kick ass.
What I find most interesting about the martial arts is the emotional component, and just the discipline that is part and parcel of something that, to the untrained American mind or, whoever it may be, you think something is just so decidedly physical, but it's something that's very, very emotional, it's very, very focused, it's a very, very cerebral experience.
To me, ultimately, martial art means honestly expressing yourself. Now, it is very difficult to do.